So guys, we're going to do a little bit of a reveal, I guess, today. Went back to the home farm for Easter, and I was showing the farm around to my youngest, who's 4, and I took some pics, and I thought, hey, I'd share it with you guys here on the channel. So what you're seeing there is a Google Earth image of the main farm. We farmed all of the farmland here that you're basically seeing in the center of the picture, with the farm itself right here in the middle. And what you really can't see here is that wherever we have trees here, that's obviously elevation changes that relate to different highs and lows, obviously, of the terrain. And then there's a road that runs straight across right in front of the farm. It's kind of hard to see from this zoomed out angle. So for the next little bit, we're just going to kind of clip through some pictures. Here we are. This is the side of the dairy. Now, when I was on the farm, we didn't have any cows. They had sold off those cows probably about 10 years before I came into existence. But the small building there is the dairy, and then the big white building in the back, that was the main milking parlor, I guess. And the next few images are going to be the quintessential American bank barn. We've got the classic bank barn here on the farm, and I went ahead and took several photographs of all the various angles. Now, most of the machinery that you're seeing in the barns and around the farm are not owned by us anymore. We have pretty much concluded our farming careers and have henceforth leased out the buildings and the land for other farmers to come in and make use of that land. And most of the equipment that you see scattered around the farm is equipment that they own and not something that we own. But there is one bit of kit, or a couple bits of kit, that we'll see here in just a little bit. That is something that I used, or basically was the instrument of my torture for several years of my youth. And for those of you that have watched any of the live streams on UMRV, you'll see that we've had plenty of time playing with these types of grain bins. Here on the farm, we've got 5 bins. There's one kind of tucked up around the corner there, the biggest one. Then we've got 3 in a row, and then we've got the smallest bin up here, kind of off by its side on the hill. And went ahead and took a little screenshot, or took a little photo of the inside of a bin. I know I've described working inside the bins before, cleaning them out. And as you see there on the floor, it's a grated floor, and there are big fans and heating elements around the back. I didn't really take a picture of that, but on that one little bin, you would have saw a little small fan there on the front. If you wind back, you'll see it a little bit. But that blows air up through the floor, and in theory up through the grain. And then there's that sweeper auger there on the floor, and when the grain gets low, that is usually propped up a little bit into the grain, and when that gets kind of low, we'll engage that, and that will basically start walking around the floor and dragging grain into the center. And once it gets really low, well, I would be tasked with going in there with a giant grain shovel and basically cleaning it out, while at the same time avoiding that thing as it ran around the grain bin. And those things, they get going pretty darn quick, so it's kind of like hopscotch. But all the time worried that that thing's going to basically try to grab you and pull you in. So it's definitely not a time to have long shoelaces. And then the next photo is the top of the bin, kind of looking up. There are a couple long augers that hang down that can basically use to stir the grain, if you will. They rotate and basically pull grain up from the bottom of the bin to the top, and then they also are on kind of their own screw at the top, and as it rotates around the bin, they move in and out from the center to the outside and back to basically help stir the grain up. So while we were walking around, found this nice little tractor. This is a Farmall Super H, and this is one of the first tractors that I learned to drive, and drove around quite a bit on the farm. It's super because it has PTO and hydraulic capability. And then we've got this. I'm not sure if this is the exact baler that we used or if it's just looks like it, because I know the one we used didn't have a Ford logo on the front there. But we used a New Holland baler just like this with a kicker on the back. Right there, you can see there's two belts, one on the top, one on the bottom, and it just the belts are running at a fairly high rate of speed, and it just grabs the bale as it moves through the compaction chamber there and the twine, the wrapping area, and it grabs a hold of it and just flings it up into a wagon that's being trailed behind. And then there in the front of the picture there's a little box. That's where the twine is, and unlike the farm sim games where you just kind of put the twine in, you've got to actually chain them together and tie them together. And the funnest part there was, well, I would say that jokingly because it wasn't fun at all. Sometimes when it would switch over to a new spindle of twine, the knot that we tied to tie the two spindles together wouldn't really hold, and we'd end up with ourselves a busted bale. And it's not really that fun pulling a busted bale out of a wagon, trying to at the same time keep your footing and everything. And then we're just going to conclude here with a little bit of panorama. This is a video I took kind of panning around. This is there beside the dairy, panning around, looking out across the field. Pretty much everything you see back to all of the various tree lines is farmland that we would farm. There's my son, and there's one of those fans I was talking about that would blow air. There was a propane element there behind it that would cause obviously the air to be heated up and everything. And you can see another one of those propane elements. And then just peeking off to the side there was an angled equipment shed. We couldn't get in there because it was locked up. Classic farm lock, which meant that there was a pair of vice grips holding the two doors together on the inside, and then there was a padlock on the only real door outside. So this is the same cornfield from the other side of the equipment shed, just looking out over the road there. And the land that's on the other side of the road, all the way down to that tree line, is what we used to farm. These houses are now rentals, but the first house there on the left, that was the house that my grandparents lived in. The white house there on the left is the house that my great-grandmother lived in. And then the house just down a little bit, that was actually an old chicken coop that we used to have farmhands live in. So this is another angle just up the street a little bit where my grandmother currently lives, looking out across those fields across the street. And then that field just wraps around the tree line again and goes back down there to where those other trees were. So I hope you all enjoyed kind of a little bit of the origins of Farmer Klein. So let me know in the comments what you thought.